And welcome back to Success Made to Last. I'm Rick Toquigny. This is our Author's Corner. And our returning guest is author Mike Guardia. He's an internationally recognized author and military historian. We really enjoyed talking to Mike last time. We learned that he's a veteran of the United States Army, having served 6 years of active duty as an armor officer. He is the author of the widely acclaimed Hal Moore, A Soldier Once and Always. That's the last book that we talked about, Mike, when we were together. He's twice been nominated for the Army Historical Foundation's Distinguished Book Award, which is a big deal, by the way, because it says that Mike is all about attention to detail, which he is when you read his book. Today is a very special day, not only to talk to Mike, but also to honor the late, great General Colin Powell. So we're going to do that. But first, Mike, welcome back to Success Made to Last.
Well, thank you very much, Rick. It is always a pleasure to be on the show. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you, too. Hey, this latest book, Skybreak, is a great one. I particularly liked it because it's got some short stories that are easy to read and digest. And so you read this great book, and then you pick it up again and read another one. And each of your stories, I think, are beautifully stated. And as you were telling me in the pre-show, it's really about celebrating the 30th anniversary of Desert Storm, where these young pilots were rising to the moment. And there are a cast of characters in here. I wouldn't call it the Dirty Dozen, but when you start to look at all these characters, I think it's just absolutely fascinating. So let's start with let's talk about in your mind and heart, why is it so important for us to remember the 30th anniversary of Desert Storm?
Well, I think it was a watershed moment for us in a lot of ways, because the last high-intensity conflict we had at that point was Vietnam. And everyone knows that war did not end as well for us as we would have liked it to. Then, of course, you had the post-Vietnam malaise, where the military as a whole was really not feeling too good about itself, and training and readiness sank to an all-time low. And throughout the 1980s, you really had this revitalization of America's military. You had an infusion of money and a boost of morale. And you really see the downstream effects of that in Operation Desert Storm. It underscores how well our military performed and how well they can do when they have good training and good teamwork and rise to the occasion.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a tribute to, I think, the infrastructure as well. And I think it also will quiet any critics of our strategy as a nation from a military perspective. So I think it was just brilliantly done. Why did you call it Skybreak?
Well, I wanted to get a title out there that really encapsulated the spirit of the mission, and to give any reader out there an indication of, hey, this is a book about fighter pilots. And I said, okay, well, I want to do something that emphasizes the third dimension, just the whole momentum behind all of these air-to-air combat operations. So when I sat down and thought about it and said, okay, given everything I want to accomplish with the title, what's something creative and catchy, for lack of a better term, that's really going to catch the reader's attention? And I think, okay, well, I want to emphasize sky, something in the third dimension. Do I want to call it Sky this, maybe Something Skies? And then it finally hit me, Skybreak. Okay, I think that covers all the bases. We know that we're operating in the third dimension in the sky. And you can very well say that these dogfights that are happening in the sky are essentially breaking it. So I'm like, okay, Skybreak. I think I have my title now.
Very good. I think it really works because as folks, as you read through this, and again, the book is Skybreak, the 58th Fighter Squadron in Desert Storm, you're going to enjoy the detail of those dogfights and the detail behind each of these individuals. And let's jump over it and talk about. I'm going to talk about two of them. Let's not give away any more than just two.
Okay.
How about that, Mike?
Sounds good.
Because we give away too much information on this show anyway. But this is on page 127. You're talking about Rick Tulini. who recalled this is I love this part because it talks about being prepared.
Right.
The mission brief went pretty smoothly. There actually was not much to go over because we had analyzed and pre-briefed this mission so many times in the last couple of weeks. We really just needed a quick review to update the weather for that night because weather is critical,
Of course,
to night mission. But it was actually the weather that generated some of the greatest concern. Almost reminded me of Normandy,
yeah,
where they're planning. Tell me a little bit more about Rick Toquigny.
Okay. Well, Rick Tulini is one of the featured players in Skybreak, and he was, of all the junior pilots in the unit, he was really the one who had the most prominent role in the training and organization of how that unit fought. He was what you called a weapons officer, and for any non-Air Force types out there, what that means is that he is, for all intents and purposes, the most technically and tactically proficient fighter pilot in the unit. He is the one who is making the flight schedules. He is the expert on how these weapon systems are employed, on how these formations are set up, and for him to take that knowledge and put it into action throughout the entirety of Desert Storm was really nothing short of a miracle. So he put his expertise out there, and he created the flight schedules. He created the flight manifests. That had these pilots in the right place at the right time in order to accomplish the mission as well as they did.
Very good. So he's the so-called warrior of the warriors, the man's man, so to speak, with all those specific details in mind. And who else should we isolate this morning and celebrate in particular? I happen to like Larry Cherry Pitts myself. And it's not about the names, folks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have Mike comment on that in a second. But
okay.
How about Chuck Mcgill? Let's talk about Chuck.
Absolutely. So Chuck Mcgill, he was really a novelty in the 58th Fighter Squadron. And I say that because by trade, he was a Marine Corps pilot. He was a Marine F-18 pilot who was assigned to the 58th Fighter Squadron on an exchange program. So here you have a Marine aviator who has grown up within the F-18 community, and he gets thrown into the mix with the Air Force, and now he's learning to fly F-15s. So that whole cross-cultural experience for him really made him stand out. He brought a lot of professionalism to the table. He also brought a lot of outside experience so that the Air Force pilots could see how their fixed-wing aviation brethren in the other services operate. And not only that, he achieved he achieved the distinction of being the first Marine Corps pilot since Vietnam to achieve an air-to-air kill. And what makes it all the more interesting is that here you had a Marine pilot who emerged victorious from a dogfight while flying an F-15 in a sister service. So, I mean, that is the stuff of Hollywood right there.
No kidding. No kidding. It's a man of many dimensions, and helps the military blend in together to where there's less division, I would suspect. I think that was my favorite story inside this book. Well, folks, you're going to hear and read a whole lot more. I'm going to ask Mike a few other questions after our commercial break. Other books that Mike has written include American Guerrilla, Shadow Commander, Hal Moore, we mentioned earlier, A Soldier Once and Always, The Fires of Babylon, Crusader, Tomcat Fury, Wings of Fire, Foxbat Tales, Days of Fury. Man, you are prolific. Are you getting better as a writer, do you think?
Oh, I hope so. I'd like to think that every successive book I do is just a little bit better than the last one. Maybe clean up my grammar a little bit. So, yeah.
Have you no longer in sentences and prepositions.
Correct.
Nor did you in American Guerrilla.
Correct.
I might add.
Yeah.
All right. I want to spend the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes talking to you about the art of writing. And you have written a lot of books, and I want to know what you have learned about yourself as an author when you uncover stories like Craig Mole Underhill, which is one of my favorite characters in your book. What have you learned about yourself as an author, and your ability to ask the right questions?
Well, what I've done as an author is I try to put myself in the other person's situation. And I tell myself, okay, well, if I am this particular person and I'm relating the events that happened to the story, what would I want this author to know about it? What would I want to convey to this person to ensure that the legacy of the event gets recorded accurately, and what will make my experiences relatable to any number of readers out there.
Yeah, and rich narrative is the key to you young authors that are out there. And what Mike just mentioned, though, was about relatability and some aspirational writing. And you're putting yourself in the shoes of the reader. That's what I noticed differently about Skybreak, Mike. Mm-hmm. You caught me at a section about why pilots are given nicknames, right. And I went, "That's cool."
Yeah,
because you always wonder what's the derivation of a nickname. And would you give one example of why one of these pilots was named the way they were named?
Oh, of course. So when a pilot gets his call sign, it's typically something that he is not fond of. Rarely does a pilot ever get to choose his own call sign. It's normally something that his classmates in flight school give to him as a function of either his name or what he looks like, or he's famous for some epic screw up that made him famous throughout the training squadron. So a few examples that I can give. There was one gentleman in the book. His name is Tony Murphy, and his call sign was E.T. Okay. Now, if you see pictures of this guy, you see that he bears no resemblance to the Hollywood alien at all. He's actually a very nice looking man. Okay, but his classmates in flight school gave him the name E.T. because one time he was at a bar, and for one reason or another, I guess he got stranded, but he had to call his wife to come pick him up. And his friends at that point told him, "Oh, he's phoning home," kind of like E.T. Hey, E.T. is your new call sign.
I love that. That's the sort of personality that's coming out in this historical narrative. So I really appreciate the style that you're adopting. All right, Ms. Guardia. Hey, thank you for being on. Tell our listeners one more time where they can purchase Skybreak and possibly get a signed autograph copy.
Yes, sir. So you can buy Skybreak at Amazon.com. And for any autographed copies, they can contact me directly through my website. That is MikeGuardia.com.
Fantastic. Mike, thanks for being on our Success Made to Last authors. And as we always say, folks, may you continue to move your life from ordinary to extraordinary. And we hope that you have a great week.